Welcome everybody for being here with our Business Network breakfast. And I'm very pleased that everybody's able to join us, as many as we're seeing people joining us all as we move along. Today, I'm going to be introducing Commissioner Rodney Ellis. And after his remarks, we're going to do a question and answer. And then I'm going to wrap up with an important announcement about a capital project that the district is just getting kicked off. However, of course, as we all know, Commissioner Rodney Ellis really needs no introduction, but I'm going to make one anyway. Commissioner Rodney Ellis was born and raised in Houston's Sunnyside neighborhood, the proud son of a yardman and a maid. Ellis attended Texas public schools from grade school all the way through law school. He holds a bachelor's degree from Texas Southern University, a master's degree from the Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs, a law degree from the University of Texas School of Law. As commissioner, they're looking over my shoulder, as commissioner of Harris County Precinct 1, Ellis has played a critical role on the court by securing misdemeanor bail bond reform, flood equity guidelines, stronger worker protection, and economic opportunities for provisions, funding of indigent defense, COVID-19 recovery funding, including direct relief for residents, small businesses, emergency rental assistance, and shelters for those experiencing homelessness, as well as other innovative programs, including providing computers to low-income students, among many, many other achievements. Before serving as county commissioner, Ellis was elected to Houston City Council and served 3 terms before being elected to the Texas Senate in 1990. For 26 years now, he's represented the Texas 13th State Senate District, and he has passed over 700 pieces of legislation. On November 8th of 2016, Ellis was elected to county commissioner and sworn into office on January 1st of 2017. As county commissioner, Ellis prioritized inclusive economic growth that uplifts low-income neighborhoods, ensures access to public and green space in underserved areas, advances criminal justice reform, protects the rights of humans, of all people, and provides safe, affordable transportation options. Following Hurricane Harvey, Ellis successfully advocated for equitable investment in flood control infrastructure and disaster recovery in vulnerable communities through a $2.5 billion bond, which was approved by voters in 2018. He is an avid art collector, and we know he's a very enthusiastic bicyclist. Commissioner Ellis is married to Lucinda Green Ellis, and they have 4 children. Commissioner Ellis will be speaking with us this morning about projects and programs in Precinct 1 that's going to impact all of us. Please welcome Harris County Precinct 1 Commissioner Rodney Ellis.
Wayne, it's good to be with you. And Mr. Norton, you got a great team. I enjoy working with your staff. In fact, I enjoy working with them so much. I invited one of my staff members, Amar Mohit is on the line, wave there, Amar bit, because just as I have learned, I go to you, Wayne, if I have a problem, but you got a great team of people that I can go to. And as you and I have gotten older over the years, it took me a while to figure it out, but I learned we can't do it all. And we're really only as strong as the team of people behind us. And that's why I have Amar here, who's going to go into some specifics. And I'm not going to give a long speech because I want to be able to open it up to some questions. But, I think one of the top issues that ought to be on your mind and the folks who are on this call would be the issue of flooding in your area. I guess you're about 16 miles. I was trying to
miles, yep, half county, half city.
What is that? I was trying to figure it out. Amar may know if it was square miles, what would it come to? I plugged it in, couldn't figure it out. But I guess Amar, we're the largest in Precinct 1 of the 4 precincts in the county, most diverse, and just as your area, the Near Northwest Management District, is a major hub for us. You know, you like the center of activity in our precinct. This precinct is kind of the center of activity for our county. We got a little over 1 million residents. I wish every neighborhood, if every 16 miles was as unified as you are, it would certainly help us a lot. I'm so glad that progress is being made on the detention ponds in your area. And it is an opportunity for us to have more green space and also abate flooding somewhat. The figure that was thrown around a lot after Harvey was something like $30 billion. I must admit, I don't know that anybody could really quantify that. But the figure was as high as $30 billion to really put us on par with, shall we say, the Netherlands. And we're never going to spend that much money. But when we were leading up to that $2.5 billion bond package, I thought it was important to have some equity language, because I think so much of what was done in the past was based on which area of town had the political clout. And to be honest with you, your area didn't always have it. And most of the areas in Precinct 1 didn't have it, with the exception of one important area, everything along Buffalo Bayou. And if we had known what we know now, the leaders at the time of the city and the county never would have let us put so many houses and other things along Buffalo Bayou, but they did it. But a disproportionate amount of money has been spent there, and it's more high end. But White Oak was neglected for a very long time, not directly in your 16 point something miles, but Greens and Halls were a big problem. And if you watch some of the debates at the city and around Commissioner's Court at Harris County, what we do to Greens and Halls in particular is a big problem. Most federal money for flood control projects follows something called the cost-benefit ratio. And that sounds nice until you dig into it. And when you dig into it, it means that we value the price of property over people. That's how federal funds have been procured for flood control projects for 50 or so years. And a lot of the formulas on the federal level ought to change. And we're working to do that. Hopefully we'll make some progress. The one area where it does get directed towards low to moderate income areas would be with HUD money. But that's the least amount of money that we get for flood abatement. And if you've watched what's happening in the news, we're fighting over that. People in Congress saw people in boats in unincorporated Harris County and in the city of Houston going down our freeways. And that's why Congress appropriated a record amount of money for relief for us after Harvey. Not as much as they got after Katrina in New Orleans, not as much as they got on the East Coast after Sandy, but more than we've ever got. And the way the feds normally do it is they give it to the states, because they don't want to go and monitor what happens in hundreds of counties, hundreds, thousands of cities. And then the state decides how to do it. And when we went through the competition, Harris County and Houston, since you half and half, we got zero out of that money. And Congressman Al Green and Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia having a congressional discussion. Some of the other colleagues may join them on tomorrow. The mayor will be there, who lives in your neighborhood, obviously. And the county judge will be there. I'll be there as well. And I'm going to make the case first on the broader issue. Obviously, you want to protect downtown, the medical center, the port, but you can't just have federal formulas tilted towards wealthy neighborhoods and not look at how many people in a neighborhood, how many people flooded. And on the LMI money, we're going to fight like heck to get our fair share of money. And I may ask you to look at Amar, send them the complaint that went in on the Title VI, the civil rights laws from Texas Housers. It would be good if they looked at it, if they agree with some of that language, they ought to file one. Only citizen advocacy groups like you, not governmental entities like us, can file one of those federal civil rights claims. Hopefully it will lead to GLO and the governor's office, to be honest with you, being much more equitable with what they do. Amar, I want you to walk through some of the projects. I got them here, but I want you to do it because I want them to know you. Some of the projects that directly impact that area, like West Mount Houston, West Montgomery, and TC Jester, if you can, if you got it there with you, Amar. Unmute yourself too.
Thank you, Commissioner. Wayne, am I able to share the screen, or just checking?
Yes, you can. You can share the screen.
I think so. For the Westmount, I can start with the Antoine project because that's the furthest out project, and then I'll talk about the project that is going to start construction soon in your community. So I think so. The Antoine project, we have partnered with the City of Houston.
Will it go up on the screen? I don't know if you're sharing or not.
Not right now. I
Okay.
will. Antoine is just we have not necessarily. So the City of Houston and Harris County partnered with the City of Houston in pursuing federal funds 2 years ago on the Antoine project, and the city has the most predominant part of the project from 290 all the way up to Gulf Bank. And I think so we have the northern section just north of Gulf Bank to Westmount Houston. And so we are following the city's lead on that project because the city has the most predominant part of the project. The funding will only become available in September 2024. And so we have a significant amount of time between now and that time until we get done with the design drawings and other things for this project. So the city is in the process of developing preliminary engineering drawings for the section that is inside the city from the 290 to just north of West Gulf Bank. And once we have a clear understanding of what the city is doing, the county has the smallest section. We should be able to pursue and also get concurrence from TxDOT on the design, since it's a federally funded project. The county would be able to come back and make the design changes for the section to the north. So I think since it's a pretty small section, so I think so that's the update on. And the city has procured a consultant to help them work through the process, and they have initiated work on the preliminary design for the project. So that is the project update on West Gulf Bank. I do want to share with you the project that is at the last Commissioners Court. Commissioners Court approved the contractor and also the engineering services for moving forward a more of a project that probably creates a Westmount Houston, West Montgomery, and TC Jester from more of a regular vehicular street to a complete street. And I want to share the screen. Give me 1 second. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
You sure can. Thank you.
So this is just a graphic for the signboard that would be going on the sign. And so I want to start with the genesis of the project, and I want to share with you all how we develop project and how we think about what is of the most value to the community. So this project started with me getting an email from Metro that one of their residents who lives in this neighborhood here in unincorporated Precinct 1 cannot access the bus stop at TC Jester in West Montgomery because it's not signalized. The bus stop is located at Westmount Houston Road and West Montgomery. So we were engaged with the engineering department trying to figure out how do you address, and he was a person with disability. And so it was important for us to address that issue. And so we started looking at how do we make improvements to this intersection. Then we realized there are schools with lack of access. We also did some traffic studies and found that in front of the schools, people were driving over 20 miles an hour, which creates a safety issue. And as you know, both City of Houston and Harris County have adopted Vision Zero. So our goal was really to improve safety for people walking and biking in this community. And so as we looked at this project started with an intersection improvement to get the resident access to a bus stop. Became transformed into this project, which looked at how do you create a safe street? How do you create safe access to schools? How do you create safe access for communities? And that was the genesis of the project. So this project has been we are expecting in early August it will break ground. We will be coordinating with the management district on the construction timeline and things so that you can share the information with your residents. So we have looked at making filling in all the sidewalk gaps along West Mount Houston, the sidewalk gaps along West Montgomery, sidewalk gaps along TC Jester, that would provide the community a safe walking access around this along all these corridors. We've also looked at how do you create a safe street. What we realized that the street was West Mount Houston was on the major thoroughfare and freeway plan, and it was supposed to extend all the way to Beltway 8. And as the street over the decades got removed in sections, you now have a very small section of the roadway, a relatively small. It's still over 2 miles, but it's not necessarily as long as it was expected to go from one side of Houston to another side of Houston. And so it is now designed for a lot more traffic than it's carrying today. So as a result, people were driving significantly higher speeds along this corridor that created safety issues. So we studied all the intersections, we did traffic studies, and we ended up concluding that we could change the roadway cross section from a 4-lane roadway to more of a 2-lane roadway with turn lanes at intersections, so still to preserve a lot of the vehicular capacity to encourage people to drive at safer speeds along this roadway. And then we would be using the other part of the roadway as a protected bike lane. So this would be the first protected bike lane in unincorporated Harris County. And the best part of it is it would be connecting the community to the schools within the destination. So most of the community that lives along Antoine, they are zoned to the schools at Antoine and West Montgomery. And so the school district is at one end. Even the community just north of on Breen accesses the school. So the whole reason of extending the sidewalk towards Breen was to allow those kids to safely walk a bike to school. And so the goal was to improve access and safety to neighborhood destinations. So this project, as I mentioned, and then also we looked at West Montgomery, whatever were the sidewalk gaps inside the city limits or connecting the bus line along West Montgomery. We just completed those sidewalk gaps, and as you can see, wherever we could do a wider sidewalk, like in front of the school, because you have drop-offs, pickups, and all of those things. We did not take, so you will have 2 vehicular lanes in front of the school because you have drop-off and pickup and all of those things. And so we created a shared use path, which will be off-street, that would allow the community to connect. So so we are really excited about this project and bringing this project to the community, and look forward to breaking ground on the project in the next by early August. So this was the one project. The other one we had initiated a long time ago also was the bridge across White Oak Bayou at DeSoto. This is just a schematic. This is not the ultimate design. This is just preliminarily the engineers trying to figure out what is feasible in this location that does not impact the federal project. So the genesis of this project was a few years ago. I would like to say at least 5 or 6 years ago, there was a study that the city had done in this area, which was called the Northwest Houston Subregional Mobility Study, that identified a need for pedestrian bicycle connectivity along DeSoto between the 2 sides of White Oak Bayou. And so this corridor was preserved as a part of that study. And so when Commissioner Ellis came in office and I had an opportunity of sharing that project with him, he concurred that this allowed the community and also allowed future improvements to the trail system along the east side of White Oak Bayou. And these could be natural trails. These could be any walking, biking trails, or whatever the community wanted it to be. So we are looking at this project as how do you connect a pedestrian bicycle facility that connected the community on either side of White Oak Bayou and gave access to the community on both sides of White Oak Bayou. We could not move forward with the project till we knew exactly the improvements along White Oak Bayou in this location. And so so we have received some preliminary information on the design from the flood control district. Once that information is finalized and the flood control district project will move forward, because that is the primary project along that corridor, and we are making sure that of trying to make this connection without necessarily having any impact on that project. This is a pretty significant span along here, and so so we're trying to still figure out. This is not the concept that likely would be under construction. This would also be a partnership project because the land on the west side is owned by the city of Houston. The land on the east side is owned by flood control. DeSoto needs improvements, so we'd be working with the city and identifying the opportunities there. So this would be a long-term project that will take a lot of partners working together and finding consensus and how we make that improvement. So those are the three major projects that.
But we want you all to know about it, Wayne, because you'll have to help advocate. Mark came from the city. We stole him from the city, and when he came over and told me about it, we want to do our part. What's a rough idea of the price tag on just doing that bridge?
It will be over $3 million, Commissioner, because it's a significant span and other improvements. So we don't have preliminary costs on this thing, but
okay. Just a couple of more, Wayne, and I want to go to questions. On June 10th, flood control will start the 9-mile construction project on White Oak between Hollister and Cold Creek.
Yep.
This will complete the $12.2 million federal project on White Oak. Maybe you folks know that. I know flood control is in the process of acquiring all the remaining homes within the Arbor Oak subdivision for that detention basin. There are 19 homes within the project boundary and 3 homes along White Oak that are in this process. Construction expected to start spring 2020. And you know that basin's going to hold about 140 gallons. The Inwood Forest Detention Project will start in about 30 days. You know that one well. And we have committed $1 million to that project, in part to help bring in the match. The Beth White, who you know well, thinks the world of you. She has a donor. We don't know who it is yet. I guess we're going to find out pretty soon. City comes up with their part. They put in $1 million. We put in $1 million. I think she's coming up. Is it 2? Since I was 3. Playing with technology this morning, I got lost. Look, I want to make this point. That equity language that we included in the order on the agenda before doing the flood election, a framework, equity framework, a commitment to equity would do a lot to make sure that we get in the neighborhoods that have been neglected in the past, like yours and many others. And that's important. We're going to have a commissioner's court meeting, the next one in June, where flood control and budget management will come in and give us a sense of what we're going to do to make up for this hole that the state has created. I mean, it's just awful. This is not a partisan comment. D's and R's were all upset. That money came to Texas because of the news accounts of people in boats. Some of your neighbors on freeways in Houston. And usually Houston has a higher profile than the county. And we expected $1 billion for the county, $1 billion for the city. We haven't got it. We're going to keep fighting. To plug that hole, we're finding money in other places, like toll road, by the way. But that's money that could go for these bridges, streets, other drainage projects. So I just want you all you should express your outrage on that, because that all changed. And I'm not just blaming GLO, which is Commissioner Bush. The federal government gave that money to the state. The governor decided who would administer it, but the formula was stacked against us. But I'm going to raise Cain. I want you to look at it. We'll send it to you. We ought to follow the equity guidelines. We committed to it, and we ought to follow it. Because if we don't have enough money and have to go back at some point and ask the voters for more, just to do the stuff we thought we were going to do, to make up for that $1.1 billion hole is the actual amount. Everybody's got to have some skin in the game. Let's go to questions. I don't want to talk too much. Is that okay, Wayne?
Certainly. Well, I just want to comment that the fact that that bridge is important to us because it's been part of our Livable Center study since 2011. And we believe that it's a way to connect both sides of our area together so that we, in fact, can really enhance and get all the maximum benefit out of the hike and bike trail, as well as getting our neighbors to know each other. And that's what makes a neighborhood.
Wayne is so important. And look, when I left the Senate, they were joking, said, oh, Rodney will be a potbelly county commissioner. He won't be able to sit in his old Senate seat in 2 years building roads. We're much more than that. These trails, this green space, one of the first trails, we use an equity lens on all these trails that we're doing throughout the region. Stephen Williams, a health director, lives in your neighborhood, by the way. Right. Stephen can ride his bike from his home. Some of it's a little unsafe. This bridge will help, by the way, even Stephen. Right. But he can get almost to his office. You get on White Oak, come through downtown. We have a protected lane going down Austin Street. When Amar first came up with this money we were taking to put on these trails on city streets and unincorporated, but on city streets, we have one going from Herman Park to LBJ Hospital. Now here's the equity lens. Instead of thinking about going from, this is the same point you're making, Wayne. Instead of thinking about going from Herman Park to LBJ Hospital, think about going from LBJ to Herman Hospital. And if you walk or ride, right, you might get out of the hospital. You may not. Number one cause of death is what we eat. You got me? So we got to be a more walkable, to make this a livable region. We got to do it. And all of this impervious cover, every time we do a road, just think about that's more flooding. Every toll road, every highway, where does the water go? I don't know if the good Lord planned for us to have 5 million people in this region, but we're here now. But hey, look, I love it. And we are, Amar, you got any idea how much are we spending on trails? And if you don't even know the numbers, 50 million? Is it over that?
I think so. Overall in the precinct, we are over that number, Commissioner.
And Wayne, I looked at that legislation, which I voted on. I think that was Senator Whitmire who carried it. So you have 16 square miles. See, when you look at stuff 3 a.m, I thought it said miles. I didn't see square. And the precinct has 363 square miles. So we can't do it everywhere, but you all are good partners. It is an epicenter that you live in. But that's quite a bit of investment. Most of what we just called out directly impacts your 16 square miles out of the 363 that we have the privilege of representing. But look, let's go to questions.
I've got a couple of questions. First of all, I want to talk a little bit more about the bike trails. One of the things that we have been working on is to keep our small businesses up along Antoine and along the bike trail in keeping them from falling apart. And we're looking at ways that we can work together with Houston Parks Board and everybody to get wayfinding messaging down to the bicyclists to pull off the bike trail and come up and look and see what we've got available, whether that be something to drink, something to eat, or even some shopping that they need to do. And we'd like to figure out a way to do that. Is that a process that that you would have an interest in helping us with?
I would, and here's a suggestion. As a new person who's like the number 2 person at Engineer, Veronica, is that her name, Omar? Her husband bike rides with me. Is that her name?
It's Veronica O'Davis.
If you haven't met her, you should meet her. She was in Washington, D.C. They moved here from Washington, D.C., where the trails do that. And some of it is signage, some of it is programming, some of it is social media. And it's like, I'm trying to avoid that Potter belly that my Senate colleagues and old John Whitmire and others joked about. I travel with my little stevia, but when I'm riding, and I ride a lot, it's therapy for me, and helps with my weight a little, because if I'd eat right, it'd be better. But when I'm looking for a place to go get the coffee, and then if I got to have the milk, so I want the almond milk or the skim milk, but look, I'd be more than happy to help with that. Sometimes it may be something on the trail, artsy, that pulls them up, but most people just don't know. That's why my former Senate colleague Judy Zaffarini called it, but I'll talk to her a little later.
Okay. Well,
We'd be more than happy.
I have another question that was just given to me. And so it says, with all this major mitigation projects that are taking place around it, is there an opportunity for developers to share in those costs and the benefits of it and reduce the site-based mitigation needs? I'm not quite sure that last part, but is there a way that developers can be working with you to do some of these projects that are coming up? Because their projects are big.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes, and we encourage it. Beth White helps a lot. It's a limited pie anyway. And in fact, I think we're trailblazers on this, Wayne, and you get it, but most places, they come in, their neighborhoods where they fight. The equity piece is hard to push because people don't realize it increases the property values. It says something. It's like that bench that you put in your front yard, and if you come home and somebody's sitting out there and you don't know them, you're mad. But the bench kind of says welcome. Well, that's what a pedestrian path or trail does. But yes, and I'm looking for ways. Amar, you got any more specifics?
So Wayne, we typically have worked, flood control has worked where you're really talking about private detention needs. You're really talking about banking, flood mitigation funds for private development projects. That's really what the subject, the question here is. I would encourage you to initiate the conversation with the city and flood control district. This is not a new subject. This has come up in all communities, especially in urbanized neighborhoods where density is higher and providing mitigation. The cost benefit analysis is really challenging to convert the land into detention. And so you end up going with, is there a model for banking for those flood mitigation funds, and you create a common shared flood detention basin that people could take credits for, buy credits for. So I think there are ways to look at that, but it would require further policy and regulatory conversations between flood control district, city of Houston, and the development community in figuring out how you do that.
And if the person who asked the question has some specifics, ask them, please follow up with us, Amar directly, but they may have some ideas on it.
I will, and I'm sure that there will be some follow-up based on the discussions we have. So can you give us a little bit more detail about the Arbor Oaks project and the kind of the timeline on that? Or is there a timeline?
Construction is expected to start in the spring of 2022. They're doing preliminary engineering for the basin now. This is the stage where they explore alternatives for the project to see which scenario works best. Then they decide on one alternative to recommend for the design phase. I hope that helps, and if it doesn't, Amar, you make sure you follow up and have.
It does.
What's his name? Marion. Myron, follow up directly.
If there's anything we can do to help on that project, we're more than happy to do that. And the final question I've got for you is, you've just done a wonderful job helping us here within the district, and we really appreciate it. What other kinds of investments or commitments are you looking at trying to make within our boundaries that we may partner with you on?
Yeah, I'm looking for partners, and the person who asked about developers, that's a key one. And I'm also looking for, to the extent your 8 square miles or so that are in the city limits. Mm-hmm. I'll look for them to come in with some money to help. And I know they have financial challenges, but we do too. And, we are spending, this had never been done before from the county side with any precinct, the level of investment we're putting in the city limits on things that normally the city would do. And the reason is, it's all connected. I mean, you can't, if you live in the half that's unincorporated, you can't make it without the other half.
Right.
But they have to be real partnerships. it can't be. Sometimes when I'm willing to do, folks will say thank you, but it's tough on all of us. It's not as though on the county side we're that good at doing all the things that we're primarily responsible for, and our state partners play a role. If the state ever drew down that money from the Affordable Care Act,
Yeah.
God, that would relieve. We could stop spending so much money on health care for the indigent, which impacts all of us, by the way, particularly you get that in a pandemic, right? But that's a big challenge to draw down that money. But Wayne, if with the resources we have, we're going to do as much as we can. I know your area has been neglected. We did the food deserts project on the county side. I know you've done a lot of farmers markets out there. I was just intended to be a pilot to encourage others. With this money coming as part of the recovery from the Biden administration, we're putting a lot of thought in the guidelines with a thought towards equity, pulling some people out of generational poverty, not just investing in stuff that once we do it, there's a whole 2 or 4 years later, because we'll only have that federal money for 2 years. And by the way, that impacts a lot of things, including crime. You brought up the bail issue earlier. I saw this stat in here that Amar put in these notes. I couldn't believe the staggering number. Harris County devotes $776 million. That's 45% of our general fund spending for law enforcement. I'm glad we do it, want to do more. But how do I go do the other stuff?
Right.
If that's just law enforcement before you get to the DA and the courts and the civil side and the family law center. In 2016, I don't know the latest number. Somebody pulled this because they could get it off the internet, I'm sure. It cost $375,299 to detain somebody in the Harris County jail population for a day. I hope that's the cost per day to detain Harris County jail population, all of them. So can you imagine $375,000 in 2016, and now we in 2021. And most of them in there, I think 70% of the detainees in the jail today have a mental health flag. If we took that affordable care money, it includes mental health coverage. I used to joke with my colleagues when I was in the legislature saying, maybe some of us need to have mental health coverage. If you just turn down money we sent to the federal government, it goes somewhere else. But we're looking for any way we can to partner. And, with a lot of the hoops that our friends on the state level are making us go through, we want to have additional revenue. We got to be partners, because very few things come across my desk. Most of this stuff on these sheets that my staff gave me costs money. Only thing that I can tell you that won't cost money would be when we're talking. But then the technology didn't work. I had to get off of the county computer that they put in my home for remote working and go old school and get my personal iPad up here so I could get on this thing. But we have to be partners.
And partnerships are what we're looking for as a district standpoint also, because that's the only way we're going to be able to attract the required necessities that we need up here. And you guys have been great partners with us for a long time. And my team just loves working with Amar. So I'm telling you right now, Amar, you got a fan club here. So
hey, let's plan something out there. You got such a great facility. We got, I don't know, a couple hundred bicycles. And we even have the 3-wheel bikes. You're not on them yet. I don't call them trikes, but we ought to do something out there and we could store the bikes there. You got me? I hate to say it, the best time to ride, the safest time to ride, Amar, is which day?
Whenever everyone's ready. We can do it on Saturdays. We can do it on Sundays.
Sundays, until we get that bridge. I have to tell Bishop Dixon, Sunday is the safest day to ride. I hate to say it, it's Sunday morning, right, Amar? That's the safest time to ride. You just don't have, what I mean? If they went out, they stay out. You just, because I hope with that Vision Zero, I take it seriously. And, it's got so many of those. I grew up when I walked to Grimes Elementary School over in Sunnyside. And we really got to get back to more of that. Hey, I was looking at stats thinking about this. It's interesting how property crimes are down because we're at home.
You're right, everybody.
And most people, but we going back to work, Amar. Nice background back there. But we going back in.
Well,
We're just gonna do it in an orderly way.
I hate to do this, but we're running into a time discussion, and I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to having many more. But I'm going to say goodbye to you and thank both you and Amar for all of this. And we're going to move forward now with really to let everybody know that's been with us. It's been a very healthy and a well discussed option. Today, what's going on at the district is equally as important, and hopefully you find it as interesting. We're going to be bringing back our National Night Out. It's going to be back in force on October 5th. We're inviting everybody to participate and be part of it. It's going to be another great event. We just know it will be. It's going to be good to see everybody again. Also, within the district, we've been working on many murals. We're going to be spending a lot of time working with in our incorporated areas right now in Precinct 1 and also in Precinct 4. We're also going to continue and encourage our business retention, business relocation, startups, and new developments throughout the whole area, and look for redevelopment and renovation of existing commercial properties that are here within the district. The capital construction project that we just talked about here a little bit ago, that is going to be our $2.6 million West Little York sidewalk project. It's now actually very close to being underway. They've started to do some groundwork along West Little York from Hollister back to almost to the railroad tracks. It's going to we're going to be able to provide construction jobs, and it's going to increase access to various homes and jobs and shopping all along that street. The project we expect to be wrapped up by the end of the year. Also in that project, we're going to be rolling out signature metro bus shelters that we are going to be very much driven by the look of the district shelters. We're also looking at a lot of long-term mobility issues that are coming up, and they're things that we're going to be looking at for not just this year, not just 5 years, but farther into the next decade, shall we say. We're looking for, we're going to be setting out a mobility study. You're going to be getting a link from us because we want to find out what your thoughts are on mobility projects in our area. So keep your eyes open for that. These are just a few of the many projects that we are all working on very actively here at the office. But it just does demonstrate that 2021 is going to be another year where the near Northwest area is going to really demonstrate that we're looking forward, and we're going to be recognized as a place to work, live, play, learn, and invest. Again, I want to thank Commissioner Ellis and Amar for being with us, and I want to thank all of you for joining us this morning. Have a great day.